Leo, this reading is time sensitive. The energy surrounding you tonight is intense, and a major shift may be closer than you think. Stay until the end because one message could change everything. Okay, Leo, stop. Whatever you are doing right now, whatever tab you have open, whatever conversation you are half paying attention to, whatever is running in the background of your mind, I need you to set it down for the next little while. Because what came through the moment I sat down to pull for this reading was strong enough that I actually had to sit with it myself before I could start talking. And I do not say that lightly. I have done a lot of these readings. I know what ordinary strong energy feels like. And I know what this feels like. And this is not that. This is the other thing. This is the thing that happens maybe once every few months, where the second the cards hit the table, the air in the room actually changes. And I get this very specific, very undeniable sense that whatever I am about to say is not general, is not vague, is not something you can shrug off as coincidence later. Something is happening tonight. Not this week, not soon, tonight. And it is already in motion, which means by the time you finish this reading, the clock on this is going to be closer than it was when you started it. So take a breath with me right now. Get somewhere quiet if you can, somewhere you are not going to be interrupted, because what I am about to walk you through deserves your full attention. And honestly, some part of you already knows that, or you would not still be here. Let's start with the part that I know is going to be sitting heaviest with some of you the second I say it, which is the "don't tell anybody" piece. Because that phrase can sound dramatic out of context, like I am asking you to keep some kind of secret for the sake of drama. That is not what this is. There is a real, specific, energetic reason why what unfolds tonight needs to exist quietly, at least at first. And I am going to walk you through exactly why before this reading is over. So that you are not just following an instruction blindly, you are actually understanding the mechanics behind it. But first, I need to establish what kind of urgency we are dealing with here, because urgent gets thrown around a lot, and I want to be precise with you. This is not the kind of urgent that means danger. This is not the kind of urgent that means something is wrong, or something bad is about to happen, or you need to brace for impact. If that is what your nervous system just did reading that title, I want you to let that go right now, because that is not the frequency this is coming from. This is urgent in the sense of being significant, urgent in the sense of timely, urgent in the sense that something has been building for a while, quietly, underneath the surface of your regular days. And tonight is the night it finally breaks the surface. This is the kind of urgent that makes a moment feel important while you are still standing inside it, instead of only understanding how important it was months later, looking back. And I want that for you. I want you to actually get to feel this while it is happening, instead of realizing in hindsight that this was one of the nights that mattered. Before I get into the specifics, I want to tell you what came through when I actually pulled for this. The cards that landed were not scattered or contradictory, the way they sometimes are when a reading is more general. They clustered. Threshold energy, breakthrough energy. Cards that traditionally point toward a door opening after a long stretch of waiting. Sitting right next to cards about honest communication and the kind of vulnerability that finally gets spoken instead of carried silently. When a spread clusters like that, tightly, around one central theme, I pay attention, because it means the message is not diffuse, it is aimed. And what it is aimed at, for a lot of you watching this specific reading tonight, is this exact situation. Here is what I am getting about the shape of it. Tonight involves communication, and I want to be specific about what kind, because I know some of you hear communication and immediately think of something small, a text about plans, a check-in, something logistical. That is not what this is. What is coming tonight is someone reaching toward you with something they have been sitting on, possibly for a long time. something they have finally reached the point of not being able to hold in anymore. And the reason it is tonight specifically, rather than last week, rather than next month, is connected to something that shifted today. Something small on the surface, maybe something you would not have even registered as significant when it happened, tipped a scale that has been slowly tilting for a while now. Weeks, maybe months of this person sitting with something, turning it over, almost saying it and then not, got converted today into an actual, undeniable, now or never kind of clarity. And clarity like that does not sit quietly for long. It moves. Tonight, it moves toward you. For some of you, I am picking up that this person has been working their way toward this moment for a while without necessarily knowing tonight would be the night. Like they have been in a slow process of getting closer to the edge of finally doing the thing they have wanted to do for some time, testing it out in their own head, rehearsing it, backing off, coming back to it. And something happened today that collapsed the distance between where they were standing and the edge itself. Suddenly the edge was not somewhere off in the future. It was right where they already were. And from that close, the step forward stopped being the terrifying, impossible thing it looked like from further back. It became just a step. So tonight, they take it. For others of you, this is going to feel less like a slow build and more like something that arrives almost out of nowhere, at least from your side of it. You may not have had any sense that this was coming, no obvious signs, nothing you can point to and say, that is where this started. And I want to gently say, that does not mean it was not building. It means it was building somewhere you could not see it, in a part of this person's process that was not visible to you yet. Some things brew in complete privacy before they ever show themselves. What you experience tonight as sudden is, from where this person is standing, the result of a very long internal conversation you were simply not part of until now. I am also getting that what arrives tonight is going to be honest in a way that previous communication from this person has not quite been. I do not mean dishonest before, necessarily. I mean guarded, managed, edited down to something smaller and safer than the whole truth, because the whole truth felt like too much exposure, too much risk, too much of a chance to be misread or rejected, or to have handed over something that could not be taken back. But tonight, that guard comes down. Tonight, this person has reached the point where staying contained costs them more than being fully honest does. And what full honesty from them looks like, aimed at you specifically, is going to land completely differently than anything you have gotten from them before. It is going to feel more real, more weighted, like being handed something they have been keeping safe, waiting for the right moment to actually give it to you. For some of you, what is coming tonight has the shape of a declaration. I do not necessarily mean those 3 specific words, although for some of you that is exactly what this is, spelled out plainly, no hedging. For others, it is something in that same register, without being that exact phrase. Something that moves from implied to stated. From something you have both been feeling and neither of you has said, to something actually, finally, unmistakably named out loud. And the naming is the significant part here, more than the specific words used to do it. Because certain thresholds, once crossed, do not let things go back to how they were before. What exists between you after tonight is going to be standing on different ground than what existed before tonight. And that changed ground, whatever exact shape it ends up taking for you specifically, is what your guides have been quietly preparing you to receive. For some of you, this is not romantic at all, and I want to honor that too, because not every version of tonight looks the same. For some of you, what is coming is a confession of a different kind, Something someone has been withholding out of fear of how you would react. Something that has weighed on them, and tonight the weight becomes too much to keep carrying alone. It might be about their own struggles. It might be an apology that has been years in the making. It might be something about their own feelings toward themselves that they have never said out loud to another human being before. Whatever specific form it takes for you, the underlying pattern is the same. Someone has been holding something back, and tonight they set it down in front of you. For a specific group of you watching this, I am getting that this is not a new person at all, but someone who has already been present in your life for a while. Someone you may have already quietly wondered about. Someone whose name has already crossed your mind more than once when you were not trying to think about them on purpose. If a particular face came to mind the second I said that, do not dismiss it as your imagination running ahead of the reading. That instinctive recognition is data, not wishful thinking. For a different group of you, this is someone who has been more distant lately. Someone you may have started to write off. Someone you told yourself you had probably read too much into. Tonight is going to prove that instinct wrong in the best possible way. The distance was never disinterest. It was that person doing their own internal work before they felt ready to close the gap. For a third group of you, I want to say something a little different. Because this reading is not only about romantic connection, even though a lot of it clearly points that way for many of you. For some of you, what is arriving tonight is coming from a parent, a sibling, an old friend, someone whose relationship with you has been carrying an unspoken weight for a long time, something neither of you has known how to bring up. Tonight, they find the words. And if that is your version of this reading, I want you to know that the same tenderness, the same need for privacy at first, the same advice to receive it with your own honesty in return, applies just as much to you as it does to anyone expecting something romantic. I want to pause here for a second and talk about the actual mechanism of how this reaches you tonight, because I am getting different forms depending on who is watching this. For some of you, this comes through as a text message, and I want you to notice, when it happens, whether it starts differently than the way this person usually texts you. A longer message than usual. A pause before it. Maybe you will see them typing, and then stopping, and then typing again. That hesitation is not nerves about you specifically. It is the natural hesitation of someone about to say something that matters more than what they usually send. For others, this comes through as a call, and if it does, notice the tone in their voice in the first few seconds, before they even get to the actual content. There is going to be something different in how they open the conversation, a little softer, a little more careful than usual. For a smaller number of you, this is going to happen in person tonight, unplanned, in the middle of an otherwise ordinary evening, and it is going to catch you slightly off guard specifically because you were not expecting a conversation like this to happen in the middle of something so normal. And for a few of you, this arrives in writing that is not a text at all, a letter, a note, a voice memo they recorded and could not bring themselves to send until now. Whatever the exact form, the underlying energy is the same. Someone has chosen tonight to stop holding something back. Now let's actually get into the why behind the secrecy, because I promised I would explain it properly, and I meant that. The first reason this needs to stay between you, at least for tonight, and likely a little while beyond it, is protection. What happens tonight is going to be in its earliest, most tender state. Think about how fragile something new actually is in its first hours. It has not had time to establish itself yet, to find its own footing, to become sturdy enough to withstand outside opinions, outside questions, the well-meaning but sometimes destabilizing input of people who love you, but are standing outside this and cannot feel what you are feeling from inside it. If you hand this over too quickly, before it has had any time to settle into its own shape, you risk introducing static into something that is still trying to find its frequency. Let it exist first. Let it become solid enough on its own terms before it has to survive contact with anyone else's reaction to it. The second reason is that whatever happens between you and this person tonight deserves to exist first in its own private space. Just the two of you, without the immediate pressure of other people's opinions shaping how either of you feels about it before you have even had the chance to feel it yourselves. The moment something becomes known to other people, it also becomes subject to their frameworks, their history with relationships, their fears for you, their hopes for you, which may or may not have anything to do with what you actually want. Their questions, asked with love but landing like interrogation anyway. Before any of that gets layered on top of this, it deserves the chance to just be what it actually is. Real, private, yours, and theirs, before it belongs to anyone else's opinion of it. For some of you, I am also picking up that the person reaching out tonight has either directly asked for discretion or is going to need it implicitly, even if they never say the words. Not because there is anything shameful happening here, and I want to be clear about that because sometimes secrecy gets tangled up in shame in people's minds, and that is not the frequency I am getting at all. This is about vulnerability, not shame. This person is doing something that requires real courage from them, and they need to know, even if only instinctively, that what they are handing you tonight is not going to immediately become a topic of conversation with your sister, your best friend, your group chat. They need to feel safe enough in the act of reaching for you to actually go through with it. And your ability to hold this quietly, at least at first, is part of what makes that safety real instead of theoretical. I want to describe the actual texture of tonight now, because I think knowing what it might feel like in your body is going to help you recognize it when it arrives. There is an intimacy to tonight that has almost nothing to do with physical proximity. Even if you and this person are nowhere near each other tonight, even if what happens comes through a phone screen, through text, through a call, through a voice note, the quality of it is going to feel close in a way that completely bypasses the medium. Real honesty does that. Real vulnerability creates its own closeness, regardless of distance. What is coming tonight is real enough and honest enough that it is going to feel intimate, even if the only thing physically happening is you looking at a screen in your own room, alone. If this is your first time watching one of my readings, I want to welcome you. And I also want to say a quick word about how to actually receive what I am describing. I am not telling you exactly what is going to happen word for word, like a script you can hold up against reality later and grade me on. What I am doing is describing an energy, a pattern, a shape of thing that is moving toward a lot of people who share something in common right now, which is why so many different people watching the same reading can still feel like it is speaking directly to them. Take what resonates, let go of what does not. That is not a cop-out. That is simply how this kind of reading actually works. And the people who have been with this channel for a while already know that the parts that do resonate tend to resonate with startling accuracy. For some of you, there are going to be tears involved tonight. And I want to say clearly, these are not tears of pain. These are the specific tears that show up when something you had quietly hoped for, something you had maybe even started to talk yourself out of hoping for, because the waiting had gone on long enough that hope started to feel risky, actually arrives. When confirmation of something you needed to hear comes through so clearly, so undeniably, that your body responds to it before your mind has even caught up to what is happening. Those tears are not weakness, they are release. They are what happens when something that has been held in tension for a long time is finally allowed to let go. If they come, let them come. There is nothing to manage about that, nothing to be embarrassed by. That is just what relief looks like when it moves through a body. For others of you, the reaction is not going to be tears at all. It might be laughter. The kind that comes out almost involuntarily because the relief is so big it has to go somewhere. It might be stillness, a kind of quiet settling where you just sit with what you have received for a while before you even respond, because you need a minute to actually take it in. There is no wrong way for this to land in you. Whatever comes up for you tonight is the correct response for you specifically. And I do not want you comparing your reaction to some idea of how you think you are supposed to feel. I am also getting that tonight might carry a slightly unreal quality while it is happening. Not unreal in the sense of a dream, because dreams have a haziness to them, and this is not going to feel hazy. It is going to feel almost too specific, too grounded, too clearly actually happening to be mistaken for anything but real life. But there might be a moment somewhere in the middle of it where a part of you steps slightly outside yourself and watches what is unfolding with a kind of wonder, a "this is actually happening" feeling, almost like you are simultaneously living it and witnessing it. That is a completely appropriate response. This is actually happening. And some things are significant enough that noticing the wonder of them while you are inside them is not a distraction from the moment. It is simply what being fully present in a meaningful moment feels like. For some of you, tonight is also going to ask something of you in return. And I want to be clear that this is not a grand gesture, not a prepared speech, not something you need to have thought through in advance or rehearsed in your head before it happens. It is simply honesty, your own honesty, offered back in response to theirs. What is being handed to you tonight, the vulnerability of it, the realness of it, is going to open a door. And that door works both ways. It is not one person standing in a doorway, waiting to see if the other one follows behind. It is an invitation for both of you to walk through together. Your honesty in that moment, whatever shape it naturally takes for you, whatever words come out when it is your turn to speak, is what completes the circuit. It is what turns tonight from one person reaching toward another into two people finally reaching toward each other at the same time. After however long this has quietly been building underneath the surface of your normal days together. I know some of you right now are sitting with a version of, "Are you sure?" Or a version of, "What if I am reading too much into this? What if this reading does not actually apply to me?" And I want to speak to that directly, because that voice is common, and it is not a sign that you are wrong to feel pulled toward this reading. It is usually a sign that this matters enough to you, that some part of you is trying to protect you from being disappointed. If this reading did not resonate at all, you probably would not have made it this far into it. The resonance you are feeling right now is information. Trust it a little more than you are currently trusting the doubt. For those of you wondering whether you actually have the emotional bandwidth for whatever tonight brings, whether you are ready, whether you have done enough work on yourself to receive something like this well, the answer coming through clearly is yes. Not because tonight is going to be effortless, and not because it will not ask something real of you, but because you have been preparing for this without fully realizing you were preparing. Every bit of healing you have done, every moment you chose yourself over settling, every time you held a boundary instead of collapsing it just to keep the peace, Every time you told yourself the truth about what you actually wanted instead of what was easiest to want. All of that has been quietly building toward you being ready to receive something like this when it finally showed up. And it is showing up tonight. I am picking up something about the physical, sensory experience of tonight for a lot of you. And I want to describe it because these details tend to be part of what makes moments like this stick in memory so vividly later. Maybe it is the specific quality of the light wherever you happen to be when this reaches you, the particular color of a sunset through a window, or the way a lamp is sitting in a room. Maybe there is a song playing somewhere in the background, on the radio, through a speaker in another room, something that you did not choose on purpose, but that ends up permanently tied to this moment afterward, so that hearing it months from now brings you right back here. Maybe it is a physical sensation, the way your chest feels when you read whatever comes through, the way your breath changes without you deciding to change it, the way everything around you seems to go slightly quiet for a second as the full weight of what is happening actually registers. Tonight is going to have a texture to it. Details are going to lodge themselves into memory in that specific way that only genuinely important moments manage to do. Years from now, if you think back over this stretch of your life, tonight is one of the nights that is going to surface. One of the ones that actually mattered in the larger story you are living. For some of you, I want to name something a little deeper that is running underneath tonight, which is the sense that this closes out a pattern rather than simply beginning something new. Some of you have been in a cycle, maybe across more than one connection, of almost having this exact kind of honesty offered to you, and then watching it get pulled back at the last second. Of getting close to the threshold, and then someone else's fear shutting the door before you got to walk through it. If that pattern is familiar to you, I want you to notice that tonight breaks it. This is not another almost. This is the actual thing arriving, uninterrupted, all the way through to completion. Whatever karmic weight you have been carrying from those earlier almosts, tonight is where that weight starts to lift. Because you are finally getting to see what it looks like when someone follows through instead of retreating. I want to talk for a moment about timing, because I know some of you are the kind of person who wants to understand the mechanics of why now. And I respect that, so let's go there. Nothing about the timing of genuinely significant things is ever really accidental, even in the moments when it appears that way on the surface. There has been a preparation happening on both sides of this, yours and this other person's, running in parallel, mostly without either of you fully realizing the other one was going through their own version of it at the same time. The work you have done on yourself, the healing this other person has quietly been doing on their end, maybe in ways you have not even seen directly. All of it has been converging toward a point of mutual readiness that simply was not there before, even a few months ago, even a few weeks ago. And whatever it is you want to call the force behind these things, the universe, timing, energy, alignment, it has been watching that convergence happen and waiting for the moment when both of you were ready enough. Not perfect, not finished healing, because nobody ever fully is. Just ready enough. And tonight, apparently, is when ready enough finally arrived. For some of you, I am picking up that tonight is connected to something that happened earlier today that on the surface would have looked completely unrelated to any of this. A conversation you had, a thought that crossed your mind out of nowhere, something you read or overheard or scrolled past, something small enough that you probably did not clock it as significant in the moment it happened. But that small thing planted something. It shifted something just slightly, and it started a quiet chain reaction that has been running in the background of your day ever since. Mostly below the level of your conscious awareness. When tonight arrives, carrying what it is carrying, some of you are going to find yourselves suddenly connecting that earlier moment to this one, recognizing it in hindsight as the very first domino that set the rest of today in motion. I am also getting that tonight is going to bring some genuine clarity about the direction things are heading in, and I want to be careful about how I frame this, because I do not mean everything gets resolved and decided in one single night, because that is not usually how real life actually works. What I mean is that honest, real communication between two people who genuinely care about each other tends to produce a sense of direction that was not there before it happened. Even if it does not answer every single question, even if there is still more conversation to be had after tonight, there is going to be a settling, a sense of where this is heading that gives you something solid to stand on that simply was not available to you before tonight arrived. For some of you, I want to gently prepare you for the possibility that tonight might stir up a little bit of fear alongside the excitement. And I do not want you to interpret that fear as a sign that something is wrong. Fear often shows up right alongside genuinely good things, especially when those good things are big enough to matter. Because a part of you that has been hurt before is doing its job of trying to protect you from being hurt again. That protective instinct is not wrong to have. It is just not always accurate about what is currently in front of you. If fear shows up tonight alongside everything else, you do not have to fight it or suppress it. You can simply notice it, thank it for trying to keep you safe, and choose to move forward anyway. Because what is arriving tonight has earned the chance to be met without the fear making all your decisions for you. I want to spend a minute talking about the difference between this kind of urgency and the kind that comes from anxiety, because I think it is important for you to be able to tell the two apart, especially tonight. Anxious urgency has a frantic quality to it. It makes you want to check your phone every few minutes. It makes you scroll back through old conversations looking for clues. It puts you in a state of scanning, bracing, trying to control an outcome that has not happened yet. What I am describing for you tonight is not that. This is a settled kind of urgent, a knowing rather than a scanning. If you notice yourself spiraling into the anxious version while you wait for tonight to unfold, gently bring yourself back. Put the phone down for a few minutes. Go outside if you can. Drink some water. Let your nervous system come down out of the scanning state. Because what is coming tonight does not need you to catch it through vigilance. It is going to find you, regardless of whether you are staring at your phone or not. For those of you who find yourselves wanting to do something practical with this energy while you wait, I will say this. You do not need to prepare a response in advance, and you do not need to rehearse how tonight is going to go, because trying to script it ahead of time usually just adds pressure that was never necessary to begin with. What you can do, if it feels right to you, is create a little bit of quiet for yourself this evening. Put your phone on silent for a while, if that helps you settle instead of spiral. Journal for a few minutes, if that is something you do. Not to figure anything out, but just to get some of the anticipatory energy out of your body and onto paper. Light a candle, if that is part of your practice. None of this changes what is coming. It simply helps you be a little more present for it when it arrives, instead of meeting it while keyed up and scattered. I also want to speak directly to anyone watching this who is sitting with a version of, but what if nothing happens tonight? What if I am building this up in my head for nothing? I understand that fear, and I am not going to pretend that every single person watching this is going to have an experience that matches every single detail I have described. Readings like this speak to a collective, and within any collective, there is a range. Some of you are going to feel this land with uncanny precision tonight, and some of you are going to feel a softer, quieter version of it. Maybe not tonight specifically, but very close to it, in the next few days. If tonight comes and goes and nothing dramatic happens, I do not want you to conclude that this reading was wrong or that you are somehow excluded from good things. Energy does not always move on the exact timeline we want it to, but the underlying momentum described here is real, and if it is not tonight, it is close. For those of you who receive whatever this is tonight and find yourselves unsure of exactly how to respond in the moment, I want to take some of the pressure off right now. You do not need the perfect words. You do not need to have your whole response mapped out and polished before you send it or say it. What is being offered to you tonight is not a performance that requires an equally polished performance in return. It is an honest thing that is asking for an honest thing back. However imperfect and unrehearsed that honesty happens to sound coming out of you in the moment. Say the true thing, even if it comes out a little clumsy. Clumsy and true will always land better than smooth and guarded. I am getting a very specific sense of how tonight ends, and I want to describe it now because I think it will be comforting to know in advance. Tonight ends with you feeling different than you did when it started. Not dramatically different, not in some obvious external way that anyone looking at you from the outside would necessarily notice. But internally, something is going to have settled. Something is going to feel more certain, more real, more like solid ground where there used to be a kind of low hum of uncertainty underneath things. And that settling, that quiet internal shift, is what you are going to carry with you when you fall asleep tonight. It is what is going to be waiting for you when you wake up tomorrow. And tomorrow is going to feel a little different too, simply because of what tonight brought with it. For some of you, in the days that follow tonight, I am picking up that there is going to be a temptation to overanalyze what happened, to replay it, to second guess whether you responded the right way, whether you said too much or not enough, whether this means what you think it means or something smaller than that. I want to gently ask you to resist overanalyzing this too hard in the first day or two afterward. Let it exist as what it actually was before you start narrating it into something else in your head. The meaning of tonight is going to become clearer with a little bit of time and a little bit of distance. You do not have to solve the whole thing in the first 24 hours. For others, in the days that follow, what you are going to notice is a kind of quiet confidence that was not there before. A sense that something you had hoped was true about this connection has now been confirmed in a way that lets you stop guessing and start actually building. That confidence is going to change the way you show up in this connection going forward, in small, steady ways that compound over the following weeks. I want to speak briefly to what happens further out, a week or two beyond tonight, because I know some of you are already thinking that far ahead. For most of you, the initial privacy around this is not permanent. It is a season, not a life sentence. There is going to come a point, and you will likely feel it clearly when it arrives, where sharing this with the people close to you starts to feel natural instead of risky, because it has had time to settle into something sturdy enough to withstand outside opinions. Trust that timing when it comes. You do not need to force disclosure before it feels right, and you do not need to keep guarding something long after it has already proven itself solid. Let the need for privacy dissolve on its own schedule, rather than either rushing it or clinging to it longer than it needs to be held. I also want to say something about protecting your own peace no matter how tonight actually unfolds. Because I never want a reading like this to leave you more anxious than you were before you pressed play. If what comes through tonight matches everything I have described here, wonderful. Receive it fully, let yourself feel it without minimizing it. But if what comes through is smaller than this, or different from this, or does not come at all tonight specifically, your worth was never resting on whether this particular prediction landed exactly the way it was described. You are allowed to want this and also be completely fine if it takes a slightly different shape than expected. Groundedness is not the same as low expectations. You can hold both, real hope and real steadiness, at the same time. I am getting that your guides are extremely close to you right now. Close in a way that is almost palpable, if you get quiet enough to actually notice it. And what they want you to know is that tonight is one of the moments they have been quietly building toward alongside you this whole time. One of the things they have been holding space for while you did the necessary, sometimes unglamorous work of becoming someone capable of receiving something like this well. They are proud of you. Not in a distant, abstract way, but in a genuine, I have watched you become this, and I am moved by what I am watching kind of way. They want to be present with you tonight, in the quiet before it happens, in the moment it actually lands, and in the settling afterward. Let them be there with you. Let yourself be held by whatever larger support has been working on your behalf this whole time, whether you have consciously felt it or not. I keep getting pulled back to the word threshold as I sit here with this spread. So I want to sit with that word for a second before I close this out. A threshold is not the destination. It is the place right before the destination. The door frame you stand in for one suspended moment before you actually step through. Tonight is that door frame for a lot of you. It is not necessarily the whole story resolved, the whole future guaranteed, every single question answered forever. It is the step through the frame. What is on the other side of it is going to keep unfolding over the coming days and weeks. And that unfolding is allowed to take its own time. Do not put the pressure of a complete resolution on one single night. Let tonight be exactly the size it actually is, which is significant, but not the entire story by itself. Before I close this reading out, I want to say one more thing to whoever needed to hear it specifically, because I always get a sense, toward the end of a reading like this, that there is one particular person this is landing hardest for. If that is you, and you know in your body that it is you, I want you to know that what has felt like waiting, what has felt like nothing changing for longer than you wanted it to, was never wasted time. It was the exact runway this needed in order to arrive at the right moment instead of the wrong one. You did not miss anything by waiting. You were simply being prepared for tonight the whole time, even when it did not feel like preparation. It just felt like living your life. All right, everyone, that is everything that came through for this one. And I want to say this is one of the stronger readings I have done in a while. So if you felt even a flicker of recognition anywhere in this, I do not think that is a coincidence. Something urgent, something real, something honest is arriving tonight for a lot of you. And it is crossing a threshold that some of you have been quietly standing near for longer than you have admitted, even to yourself. Prepare for it, not by strategizing or rehearsing what you are going to say, but simply by staying open and getting quiet enough to actually notice it when it comes. Keep it close tonight. between you, this person, and whatever you want to call the force orchestrating all of this. Let it exist as itself before it becomes something other people have opinions about. And trust that tonight was always going to be tonight. This was never going to happen on a different night than this one. If this reading found you, I would really love to know. So drop a comment down below and let me know what sign you are watching this as. And if you feel comfortable, let me know afterward whether tonight actually brought what this reading described. I read every single one of those comments, and hearing how these land for you is honestly one of my favorite parts of doing this work. If you have not already, subscribe so you do not miss the next reading, because energy like this does not stay quiet for long, and I do not want you to miss it when the next wave of it comes through. Thank you so much for being here and for trusting me with this. Every single one of you means more to this channel than you probably realize. I will see you in the next reading. Take care of yourselves tonight. Bye-bye.